Good morning and welcome to Waseon High School's 2016 Veterans Day Assembly. I would like to extend a special welcome to our veterans that are in attendance with us this morning. We thank you for taking your time to come and be with us today, and you are the real reason why we are here today. At this time, I would like to introduce our choral ensemble who will be singing the national anthem. Please stand and join them and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Caleb.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets sped bursting, bombs bursting in air through the night. That our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today, more than ever, it feels important for us to remember the sacrifices that were made and are being made to give us the freedoms that we have and enjoy. I would like to introduce Waseon High School students Corey Johnson and Paige Moten, who will share the history of Veterans Day and the importance of honoring our veterans.
Today we gather in recognition of Veterans Day. So what is Veterans Day and how did it originate? In 1921, an American soldier, his name known but to God, was buried on a Virginia hillside overlooking the Potomac River in the city of Washington, D.C. The Arlington National Cemetery burial site of this unknown World War I soldier became the personification of dignity and reverence for America's veterans. Similar ceremonies occurred earlier in England and France, where an unknown soldier was buried in each nation's highest place of honor. These memorial gestures all took place on November 11th, giving universal recognition to the celebrated ending of World War I hostilities at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The day became known as Artemis Day. Artemis Day officially received its name in America in 1926 through a congressional resolution. It became a national holiday 12 years later by similar congressional action. If the idealistic hope had been realized that World War I was the war to end all wars, November 11th might still be called Artemis Day. But shortly after the holiday was proclaimed, World War II broke out in Europe and shattered the dream. 16.5 million Americans took part. 406,000 died. The families and friends of these dead longed for a way to honor their memory. An answer to the dilemma of how to pay tribute to those who had served in this latest Great War came in a proposal made by Representative Edward H. Reese of Kansas. Change Artemis Day to Veterans Day and make this an occasion to honor those who have served America in all wars. President Eisenhower in 1954 signed the bill proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day. and he called for Americans everywhere to rededicate themselves to the cause for peace. Additional significance was added to Veterans Day in 1958, when two more unidentified American war dead were brought to Arlington cemeteries from overseas and interred beside the World War I soldier. One was killed in World War II and the other in Korea. A law passed in 1973 provided for the future interment of an unknown American.
Today we all seem to take our freedom for granted. It is looked upon as a right that we inherit when we are born. What we must remember is that many have paid a severe price to obtain this freedom and to keep it. No other country on earth allows its people the liberties that the United States of America allows. Today there is, and perhaps will always be, conflict in the world. But the United States fortunately enjoys peace and freedom like no other country. Like other things of great value, this security did not come cheaply. Part of the cost has already been paid by Americans who answered the call of military duty when their country needed them. They served in numerous wars, earning the special distinction veteran. But another part of freedom's cost must continue to be paid long after the guns have been silenced. The debt is owed to America's veterans. Some need their country's help, even as their country once needed theirs, to readjust, to recover from wounds, or to overcome hardships of age and infirmity. Most need and ask nothing in repayment of their sacrifices. Let us continue to help veterans in need with the greatest possible compassion and efficiency. For the rest, since they ask no special thanks, we can best pay tribute to them this day by recognizing what they achieved and in joining them in their resolve to keep America strong and free.
At this time, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Rick Yarish. Rick is a class of 2000 graduate from Windsor Central High School. While attending high school, Rick excelled in athletics. He was an active leader in sports and the captain of his high school football and wrestling teams. In June of 2004, Rick entered the U.S. Army. 4 months later, he graduated from basic and advanced individual training at Fort Knox, Kentucky as a U.S. Cavalry Scout. After graduation, he was sent to Fort Hood, Texas for further training in operating and gunning a Bradley fighting vehicle. In December of 2005, Rick was deployed as part of Operation Iraqi Freedom to Baghdad, Iraq. On September 1st, 2006, Rick was part of a routine military mission in Iraq. While on the mission, the Bradley unit was hit with an improvised explosive device and the vehicle was engulfed in flames. Within 40 hours after the explosion, Rick and his two comrades arrived at the military burn unit in Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. Now retired from the Army, Rick gives inspirational talks and is with us today to share his story. His story, although tragic in parts, is not a story of tragedy. It is one of being able to get through anything with a positive attitude. Most importantly, Rick can honestly say he is happier than he has ever been in his entire life. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Yarish to Wauseon High School.
All right. Good morning. How y'all doing? That's not very good. It sounds like you're just doing good. All right, hopefully you're doing great after this. Hopefully I can fix that. So I'm Rick, and I get to talk to you today about some of the things that happened, or who I was before I was this, what you see in front of you. I think it's important for me to tell you who I was before, because most people just know me as the guy who was injured in Iraq, who was burned. They don't know me as the guy before, but it's important to know that part. I get to talk to you about my injury, and then most importantly, I get to talk to you about the things that happened after my injury, and why I'm here today. What got me to the point that I could be able to stand up here and talk to you all today. But first I have to introduce you to this guy right here. Amos, my service dog. I've had him for about 4.5 years now. He'll be 6 years old. He turned 6 on Christmas Day. He's a Christmas dog. He was trained in prison for the first year and a half of his life. He was actually trained by the inmates, right in the jail cell with the inmates, and he was trained for troops that are coming home with post-traumatic stress, which I can thankfully and luckily say that I do not have. So some of the things Amos can do for me is if I drop something, he can pick something up for me and hand it to me because my hands don't work very well. Amos is allowed to go anywhere I go, and I don't take him to the grocery store anymore. The meat aisle is a bad idea, and that's not a lie. But mainly, I take him to all my speaking engagements. He's just a great companion. And I'll show you some of the neat things that he'll do if he will actually do them. That's not a guarantee either. He's really a terrible service dog. He was a great service dog when I got him, I promise. And then I ruined him. Amos, heel. Good. Amos, sit. Good. Sit. Amos, salute. Oh yeah, see, I told you. Amos, salute. Salute. Good. Salute. Amos. Since Amos was trained in prison, Amos, hands up. Hands up one time. There we go. Amos, who's your daddy? Amos, bow. Good, bow. Amos, get your leash. Get your leash. That's enough. He also does this really neat thing, but there's no wall up here. I tell him to assume the position. And he puts his hands, or his paws on the wall, and I search. Down. Take easy. Good boy. All right. That's disgusting still. Every single time. So that's the good part of the presentation. Now you're gonna sit for about 40 minutes and be really bored. Because I don't do any tricks. Or at least I hope I don't do any tricks. If I fall during the presentation, you're allowed to laugh. But then you have to feel really bad that you laughed. So, I get to talk to you about the beginning. For me, when I was in high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and I was an absolutely awful student. I actually went to graduation not knowing if I was going to graduate. So I actually wore, I had my cap and gown, and I went there, and I was just praying that they would give me a diploma. I was not a very good student. And to me, it was the fact that I chose that path. I chose to be a bad student. I always would say, I'm not very good at math. And I think about it now, and I wasn't very good at math because I didn't practice math. I didn't go home and do math. We have people that play in college basketball and NBA. They didn't just practice their 2 hours. They practiced more. They played more. I can't get up here, and unfortunately, I can't get up here and tell you that I got straight A's in school. I would love to be able to do that, but I can't do that. So one thing that I regret is the effort that I put into my time in high school, because I know what I was capable of. You can't tell me, I'm just not good at math, I'm just not smart. Well, you're choosing that path. It's the same path I chose. And I took public speaking in high school, and I was absolutely awful at it. I could not stand in front of a group of people and speak. I was terrified of it. So I would actually write my speeches, and I would take them to class, and I would give them to my teacher. I'd hand the paper to my teacher, and I would ask her if I could have a 50. So I did half of the project, right? I wrote the project, but I didn't want to speak it, so I would take a 50. I didn't care. I was so terrified of getting in front of a group of kids. Or actually a group of peers at that time. I had a really difficult time. Now, I can say that I'm saying that these scars that I have gave me the confidence I needed. They gave me the confidence I needed to be able to stand in front of you and stand in front of anyone and be able to do things that I've never done before. When really, you would think that these scars that I have would put me in a dark room and lock me away forever. Because now I'm different than everybody else. But it's exactly because of the scars that I'm able to be able to stand in front of you and be able to do different things that I've never been able to do before. But it goes back to, I ended up in doing all of my speeches with just the teacher in the library after school, which is not public speaking at all. But I'm glad she did. She gave me 94 in the class. And my friends hated me because they knew I didn't do any work, and I got a 94. But I think she saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself. So I was a terrible student. Wrestling and football really is the reason I went to school. And it's, like I said, it's the one thing I do regret in life. Because I know I had more. I know I was capable of more. After I graduated high school, I thought this amazing, magical thing would happen where my ambition would just rise as soon as I graduated, and that did not happen. I carried that same attitude, and that's what happens. It doesn't just change for us. We have to change it now. If you want it to change it now. I thought that thing would happen, and it didn't. I carried that same attitude to just barely get by into my life after I got out of high school. And for 4 years, I did odd cook jobs and traveled a little bit, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with where I was. I really needed a change in my life. I really needed that sense of direction, and I needed a no way to back out thing to do. So I actually ended up joining the military. I joined the Army. And that was the first reason. I needed that kick in the butt. I needed that sense of direction. That was the first reason. The second reason I ended up joining was September 11th. The things that happened on September 11th. But even more importantly to me, the things that happened after September 11th. We always say, never forget September 11th. And I don't think we ever will. We will never forget what happened that day, the horrors of that day. But we've already forgotten what happened afterwards. When we came together as a country, working for a common goal, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. I was so proud to say I was a part of this country, because we were all working together. And it's sad that we're probably farther apart now than I've ever seen in my life. So in that time, we've gotten even farther apart. We forgot about that part. We forgot that we don't need a tragedy in our lives to come together and work for a common goal. For some reason, that's what we believe. That was the second reason I ended up joining, just that pride that I saw. I wanted to be a part of it. The third reason I ended up joining was I was at my grandmother's house, April of 2004, Easter of 2004 actually. And on her coffee table was our local newspaper, and on the front page of the paper it said, "First Southern Tier soldier killed in Iraq." The Southern Tier is the part of New York that I'm from. And it had that headline, and underneath it had his picture. And I recognized the soldier. He was a wrestler from another local school near where I was from. And I had known him for 6 years of my life. I read the article, and that's when I realized that I haven't given anything for my country first. But that wasn't even the most important part. The most important part was I hadn't done anything for myself to make myself better. And my idea of success is to make people around you better. How was I going to make anyone around me better if I wasn't okay myself? So the next day I went and signed the papers to join the Army. And people have a hard time understanding that. Wow, you read an article about somebody who died in the war that you know you would probably have to go to if you signed up. You joined because of that. And I actually joined the same job that he had. I had seen what he had given for me and for everyone else. I had seen the impact he had on my life. I had to make a decision. The next day I went down to the recruiter's office and signed the papers. I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for 4 months for my basic training. Then I went to Fort Hood, Texas for a year just to do more training. And then in December of 2005, I deployed to Iraq. I was there for about 9 months. And on September 1st, 2006, I was on patrol on a road that I had been on many times before. We had been on it the day before, the weeks before, and we had never had an incident on that road. That day, somebody decided to bury an IED under the road. IED is an improvised explosive device. It's basically a homemade bomb. Somebody had buried the bomb under the road, covered it up, we couldn't see it at all. 3 of the vehicles in front of me actually ran over it, and whoever was at the end of the wire with the battery that was going to detonate the bomb didn't hit those 3. They were waiting for the 4th vehicle for some reason. As soon as my vehicle ran over it, they detonated it, it exploded, it went through the bottom of the vehicle, up into the turret where I was sitting. I was in a Bradley fighting vehicle. A Bradley, for those that don't know, is like a small tank. Went up into the turret where the fuel cell is, our fuel tank was in there, and it hit the fuel tank, exploded, covered myself in fuel, and covered my 2 buddies in fuel as well. As soon as I was covered in fuel, I was instantly engulfed in flames. I was on fire. And I knew I had to get out of the vehicle. And thankfully that day I left the hatch above me open. Normally I would never leave that hatch open. We're actually supposed to keep it closed all the time. For some reason that day I left it open. And if I hadn't left it open, there was no way I would have found the little lever above me to hit, to open the hatch. So I was able to climb out on top of the vehicle. But then I had to get to the ground. And it's about 13 to 14 feet from the very top of the turret of the Bradley to the ground. So I had to jump. But the problem was I couldn't see anything. And I couldn't see anything because my face was on fire. So the fire was actually covering my eyes. So I wasn't able to see the edge of the vehicle and I wasn't able to see the ground. So I knew I just had to jump, take that leap of faith, and I did. And I did make it to the ground. But when I landed, I couldn't brace myself for the impact of the fall, and I ended up breaking my leg, and I ended up with a wicked cool robot leg. I didn't fall. That's the important part of that one. There. All right, we're good. I can move on now. I always dread that part. I haven't fallen yet. So, when I was on the ground, I was still on fire. What do you do when you catch on fire? Either you guys are not awake, or you have no idea what to do when you catch on fire. What do you do when you catch on fire? Oh man, you guys are super smart. Stop, drop, and roll. That's what I was doing. I was rolling around on the ground trying to put the fire out, and I couldn't put the fire out. I had too much fuel on my body. So eventually I just laid on my back and I gave up. I gave up one of the most important things that we all have in life, every single one of us in here, and that's hope. I gave up hope. Hope to me stands for hold on, possibilities exist. In that moment, I was giving up on all the possibilities that existed for my future. Every single one of them. This opportunity that I have right now to speak to you all. Maybe I was going to be a doctor. Maybe I was going to play football. It didn't matter what those possibilities were because I was giving up on all of them. Hold on, possibilities exist. There are some times in our lives where we feel hopeless. Just like I did that day when I was laying on the ground on fire. And we just decide to give up hope altogether. We have to hold on, because we will never find out what possibilities do exist for us. We have to hold on to find out. Thankfully that day I only gave up hope for a second, because I ended up rolling and I fell into a canal that was there, that I had no idea was there, but it had a little bit of water in it, and I was able to put the fire out. 2 of my buddies came down into the canal and they found me. One of them grabbed my legs, the other one grabbed my arms, and they carried me up to where the helicopter was going to pick us up. And at that moment, that's when I realized that my life was going to be different forever, if I lived. I didn't know if I would live or not. I knew my injuries were bad enough that I could possibly die. But if I did live, my life was going to be changed forever. And I knew that because I could see my face. It was hanging from my chin. I could see my hands. They were hanging off of my fingertips. I knew that if I lived, nothing was going to be the same. So my buddy was standing over me and he was helping me through the situation. And I asked him a really stupid question. And I said, how bad is it? After I had seen all that. And as a good friend would in that kind of situation, he lied to me. And he said, it's not that bad. And I looked at him and I said, well, I'll never be as ugly as you are. I figured a little humor might help the mood in that situation that day. Lighten it up. Everybody was panicking. So I figured I'd just throw a little humor into it. Eventually the helicopters did get there. And they took myself and my 2 buddies away to the hospital. And I can say that was unfortunately the last time I ever talked to or saw my good buddy, Sergeant Luis Montez, ever again. He was the one that was sitting right next to me in the turret every day for the past 9 months. A very good friend. He ended up passing away 7 days later because of the fire, because of the burns that he got that day. I ended up in the hospital for 6 months. And there's many times that I was in the hospital that I lost hope. But unlike that time that I was on the ground and I was on fire, and I was able to get hope back on my own. There's times in our lives when we just can't get hope back by ourselves. We have to rely on other people in our lives to give us hope. I've needed those people in my life to give me hope. About 4 months into my hospital stay, I hadn't seen what I looked like. Nobody had shown me a mirror. Nobody wanted me to see my own face. I understood why. They knew I was already dealing with enough emotionally and physically. They didn't want to add to it. But I hadn't seen my face in 4 months. Imagine not looking in the mirror for 4 months to see what you look like. And now add the fact that you know you look nothing like you used to. And you haven't seen your face in 4 months. I had no clue what I was going to look like. I just knew it wasn't the same. So one day I was out in the hallway and they were pushing me around in the wheelchair. And I passed by a Marine who was also injured in Iraq and who was burned as well. And I saw him and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd never seen anything like him before in my entire life. And really what I was saying to myself was, man, I'm really lucky. I'm really glad I don't look that bad. I'm really lucky. A couple weeks later, I was in my hospital room and I had taken a ton of pictures while I was in Iraq. And I asked my mom, I put them all on my laptop. I asked my mom to bring me my laptop so that I could look at the pictures. So she brought it over, she laid it down on my lap and she opened it up, and as soon as she opened it, I saw my reflection in the black screen on the laptop. It was the first time I had seen my face. Instantly, I said, I'm done. I don't care if I live, I don't care if I die, I just don't care. I hadn't seen anything like me before, except 2 weeks ago when I saw, a couple weeks before when I saw that Marine out in the hallway. When I was saying, man, I'm glad I don't look that bad. I look just like him. I couldn't believe it. Who was going to give me a chance? Who was going to accept me when I get out of here? This is normal for in here. This is what they see all the time. But when I get outside these walls, who was going to give me an opportunity? No way, no one. There's not a chance. I'm going to surprise the world. I'm going to have to lock myself in my room. It's really how I felt. So they brought in my psychologist. And my psychologist sat down with me and was trying to fix the situation. I wanted nothing to do with anything he was saying. I didn't want anything to do with it. Leave me alone. Get out of here. He saw that it wasn't working, whatever he was trying to do. So all of a sudden he started talking to me about dead spiders. And I have no idea why he was talking to me about dead spiders. I was in the middle of like a living nightmare and he decides to introduce dead spiders to the problem. That's great. So then he actually leaves the room and he comes back and he has a glass jar full of dead spiders. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be fine. He's the crazy one. Things are gonna be okay. What I realized later on was that he took my mind so far away from the problem that I forgot 5 minutes earlier I was saying, I don't care if I live or die. I don't care if I live or die. He changed the subject. He took my mind so far away from the problem that I was dealing with. He gave me hope when I truly needed it from somebody else and I just wasn't going to be able to get it back on my own. There was no way I could do that on my own. I needed to rely on somebody else to give me that hope. These people that carry hope, that give hope to other people, I like to call them sweethearts. Sweethearts are people in our lives who give hope to people when they need it the most. And I think you'll actually be surprised to find out that the origin of the word bully actually meant sweetheart. So you would actually call up your bully to go to the dance with you. It was supposed to be an endearing term. A bully meant that it was somebody that pushed you and pushed you and pushed you. Not to be mean, but to make you better. That's how bully was originally intended to mean. It was meant to mean sweetheart. And that's what I try to do. I try to create sweethearts in this world. I try to create those 16th century bullies. People who bully us the right way. I've needed those sweethearts. I've needed those carriers of hope in my life so many times. And I will in the future, just as you will. We all need sweethearts in our lives to get us to the points where we want to be. We can't do it alone. That is a fact. When I got out of the hospital, and it was a time where I was still hopeless. Yeah, I had accepted, he had gotten me through that point of seeing my face. But then when I got out of the hospital, the reality hit. It was a different world for me. kids, young kids, 5, 6 years old, were absolutely terrified of me. They were terrified of the way I looked. And I understood it. I got why they were terrified. I was scary looking to them. If I was 5 or 6 years old and I had seen somebody that looked like me, I would have been terrified as well. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to handle that situation. It was really frustrating for me. Because every time I went out in public, there was kids that were staring and they were afraid. That's not the way I wanted to live the rest of my life. So one day, I was in a grocery store, and there was a little boy who was in the same aisle I was. He was at the other end of the aisle. And as soon as we got into the aisle together, he locked eyes onto mine, and you could see he was afraid. His mom was with him, but she wasn't paying any attention. I was in my wheelchair. I was still bandaged on my legs and arms. I had open wounds on my face. I was scary. And he recognized that. And that was frustrating, because it was always going to be that way for me. So as I'm wheeling along the aisle, and he gets closer and closer, and that frustration inside of me just keeps growing more and more. He got right up alongside of me and it went like this. Horrible, right? I scared him on purpose. It's awful. Rick, you were so awesome until you told us that part of the story. I scared him on purpose. I guarantee you, he's not catching up on this season of The Walking Dead. Promise you that. Never seen a Friday the 13th movie. Promise you that. Listen, I only tell you that part of the story to let you know how hopeless I was. And also, I would never want to damage the mind of a child, ever. But hopeless people, they do crazy things. Hopeless people make really, really bad decisions in life. I had needed hope, and I didn't know where to get it from, because I couldn't get it back. So a couple weeks later, I was in a restaurant with my little brother, and there was a little girl sitting across from me. And she was staring at me, same thing. She was sitting with her grandfather. Her grandfather saw that she was staring at me. And being in San Antonio, Texas at the time, it's a very big military community. And that's where they send all the burn patients. So he knew that I was probably military. So he actually said to her, he said, "Go say hi to me." And she didn't want to come over to me. I understood it. So he said it again. He said, "Go say hi to him." So she actually started to make her way over to me. And at that point, I really didn't want her to make her way over to me, because I figured it would just end like this. When you do that twice, you're just trying to ruin kids' lives. It's a horrible thing. Couldn't do that. But I always thought it would end bad, is the point. She started to come over. She got about halfway over to me. And as nicely as I could say, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And as soon as I said that, she stopped dead in her tracks. And she turned around, and she ran back to her grandfather as fast as she could. And I was like, "You know what, Rick? Get used to it. Just deal with it. This is the way it's going to be. You're going to have to deal with this the rest of your life. Just deal with it." Even though I had no clue how to do that. She got back to her grandfather, and she looked at him, and she said, "Grandpa, he's really nice." It's the 5, 6-year-old little girl. I was a 25-year-old soldier. What would I need from her? Hope. I needed hope. And I realized I'll take hope from whoever wants to give it to me. And I will give hope to whoever needs it. In an instant when I was hopeless, she came over to me, dumped a bucket of hope on me, changing my life forever. And maybe even saving my life. I don't know if she saved my life or not. But I do know that 22 service members every single day in this country take their own lives. And I could have been another one. And in the end, they do it because they feel hopeless. I could have been on that list if it wasn't for that little girl who gave me so much hope I didn't know what to do with. That's the power of hope. That's the power of that every single one of us has. Every single one of us in here has in life. We all have that power to give somebody hope, to possibly change or save their life. She was 5 years old. Imagine what you're capable of at your age, with your knowledge. When we walk around the halls or even in the world, and we pass by those hopeless people who we recognize as hopeless, we know that they're lacking something, but what we don't know is that we have that hope inside of us to give to them. I was the same. I was that normal kid in school, the wrestler, the football player, and I walked around the halls every day with that hope inside of me to give to people, and I didn't. Maybe on accident a few times, but never on purpose. But it's only because nobody ever told me that I had this life-saving, life-changing power inside me. Probably one of the most powerful things this world that we have to offer in this world. We all have that hope inside of us to give to other people. We have to choose to give that hope to people and choose to become somebody's sweetheart. Sometimes it's little things in life that does that. And I know it will sound ridiculous, because it does sound ridiculous. But when that kid who nobody ever pays attention to, who is basically invisible, you know that they're hopeless. You know they're lacking hope. Just going over them, doing something small, something little. Like that little girl did for me, that was very small. But it had the biggest everlasting impact on me ever. Going over that kid and just saying, hey, how was your day? Nice shoes. Can I help you with your homework? I know it sounds ridiculous, because it does. No, that doesn't change anything. Want to bet? It's not ridiculous when you could possibly change that person's life forever, or even possibly save that person's life. You have no idea the power that you hold. That little girl did that for me. How many of you are New York Giants fans? Well, we gotta have one at least. How many of you are embarrassed to raise your hand? Okay, we got one. Is that really all we have? One Giants fan?
Dallas Cowboys.
Really? Yeah. Last year you'd have been like, Carolina Panthers. Just because they're winning games doesn't mean last year you were not a Cowboys fan last year. I bet you. No, I'm just kidding. Because usually the next question I ask, if there was more hands in the room, which I'm not going to do because there was only one Giants fan, that's really bad. Usually I drop the mic and I leave instantly, and I ask how many Cowboys fans? Yeah, whatever, Michigan. Cowboys, all right, whatever. How many Browns fans? Yeah. You guys will win eventually, don't worry. Actually, I can't even make a promise there. I don't know. I usually said it was Bills fans. So, I'm a New York Giants fan. Really, what it comes down to is I love football. I really enjoy football. So, I bought tickets not long after I was out of the hospital to a New York Giants Buffalo Bills football game. The tickets that I bought were not handicap accessible. I was still in my wheelchair at the time. So I had to be able to walk into the game. In my mind, there was no way I was going to be able to do that. I wasn't going to be able to get my chair to my seat. So the game wasn't for 4 months, so I had some time to learn how to walk again. But I just didn't think that it was going to happen. So the day after I bought the tickets, I went to physical therapy, and I asked my therapist, am I going to be able to walk into that game in 4 months? And he said, yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. And I thought he was crazy. I thought there was no way that was going to be possible. So the same day I asked him that question, can I walk in 4 months? He looked at me and he said, I'm going to pull your walker away from you today. And I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to sue you. That's like stealing my prosthetic leg. It's horrible. But he did. He pulled my walker away from me. And 5 minutes after he did that, I was walking around the gym. And 5 minutes after that, I was walking up and down the stairs. On the same day that I asked if I could walk in 4 months. Why? I needed one of those 16th century bullies. I needed somebody that knew I was capable of it. He knew what I was capable of when I didn't know I was capable of it. He kept pushing me to believe that I could do it. He removed that obstacle out of my way, the physical obstacle being the walker, but the even bigger obstacle was me. I kept telling myself I couldn't do it. Sweethearts come into your life and they say, yes, you can. They remove that obstacle. They help you remove that obstacle. And then they help you attain whatever it is that goal is that you want to attain. For me, it was to walk again. Isn't his job just to get me to walk again? Sure, that's what he does. But isn't his real job to give me hope? Isn't that all of our jobs? To give other people hope? I believe it is. To supply hope for anybody in any profession that we choose. Our job is to give hope to other people. I needed those sweethearts. I needed that hope in my life. Without that hope, I wouldn't be standing here today. I talk about that power of hope. And now I have to talk to you about the opposite end of that. The power of hate. Something that we see daily, unfortunately. We see it every single day in this world. There's hate somewhere. I've dealt with hate in my life after my injury because of what I did or because of how I look. About a year and a half ago, I was at my brother's house, and I woke up that morning and I saw that my phone was blinking with a blue light. I had notifications from social media. Clicked it, or opened the phone up, saw Facebook, clicked it, had about 100 notifications. I was like, oh, that's really weird. I wonder what's going on. So I clicked the notification, clicked on the first one. First thing that pops up is a picture of me in my Army uniform speaking to a group of wrestlers. And above it is a written statement, and it's so horrible that I cannot tell you what it said. But I can tell you the nicest thing it said was, I wonder if his ears are still on the side of the road in Iraq where the rest of his body is. That was the nicest thing that it had said. I can't tell you the other part. So I read it and I laughed. I really laughed really hard. I thought it was hilarious. People were making fun of me that don't know me. Next step is South Park. Hey, when you make it on South Park, you know you've made it in the world. Next goal, South Park. So I read that though, and I laughed about it. But I had seen that there was a whole bunch of people underneath who weren't laughing. They were writing really horrible things. So this guy had wrote this thing and put this picture in a private group on Facebook with about 6 other people, 6 other friends of his. Well, one of them took offense to it, took a screenshot of it, and then posted it on Facebook. So not only did it post with my picture and those words, but it also posted with his picture and his name. He had to change his home address. He had to move. He had to change his email address. He had to change his phone number. He lost his job because that post got shared over 100,000 times. It was seen by well over 1 million people. And all those million people, they were invisibly putting their arm around me and saying, hey, we got your back, we're on your side. But at the same time, they were looking at him and saying, I want to kill you. What I saw was that I had these amazing people in my life who really cared about me. But what I saw even more was the power of hate. That one person who hated, it might not have even been real hate. It might have been something wasn't even real, something they just posted just to get a laugh from somebody. But that's not how it was perceived. Everybody saw it as hate. So what I saw was that one person that showed hate created over 1 million people who hated in less than 24 hours. I talked about the power of hope. That's the power of hate. Unfortunately, the power of hate is probably a little stronger, a little easier to spread than that power of hope. But I truly do believe that the only thing that extinguishes hate is hope. We can make hope stronger than that hate. I didn't react to that the right way. I laughed about it, and I'm the only one that didn't hate that guy for writing those things, where everybody else did, but I didn't really react to it the right way. A couple of weeks ago, actually, it was only about 2 weeks ago, I got a notification on Twitter, and I still really do not understand Twitter at all, but I have it, and I clicked on it, and the message came up, and it was in French. So I'm like, wow, Twitter's awesome. I can't even read this thing. Then there was this amazing button underneath that said see translation. So I clicked that, and I can't remember exactly what it said, the whole thing, but I know the last line said, I hope you have a slow and painful death. That's what it said. I've never met this person before. I don't know who they are, but they wished me a slow and painful death. So of course, I had to respond very nicely. So I responded and I wrote to him, I said, here's the difference between you and I. I said, you choose to hate most, and I choose to love everyone. I love you. I just told a guy I don't know that said he wished me a slow and painful death, that I loved him. Guess how many people responded with hate after that? Not one. Not one single person. Did I change his views? No. He wrote another thing back that was full of hate. And then I wrote back again. I don't remember what I said other than I said, I love you again. At that point, he might have been creeped out. Who knows? But I came back differently. I reacted to it right away. Not one single person wrote a hate-filled comment under it. People who, in the last incident, were writing horrible things. We're not writing anything, or writing positive things, like, oh my gosh, Rick, I can't believe that's how you responded. That's hilarious. I didn't change that guy's view, but I changed the environment around me. I changed everybody else's view. That was the amazing thing, because I jumped into action and I took a hold of it right away. And I came back with hope instead of hate. Like I said, hate is a powerful thing. But so is hope. If we can fill this room with hope, with this world with hope, hate's not an issue. We need to figure out how to do that together. We need to make that happen. With those things that have happened in my life, I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't change what happened to me. The only thing I would change is I would get my buddy Montez back from that day. But I would go through 6 months in the hospital again, the worst 6 months of my life. I would go through those 6 months again. I would go through the 3 years of recovery again, if it led me back to here, in a second. People say, you know, would you get your hands back if you could? I miss my hands more than anything. But no, I wouldn't, because I'd have to give everything back that I gained from losing my hands. The people I've met along the way that have shaped me into who I am, I'd have to give all that back, and that's not happening. Not happening at all. Listen to this statement real quick. Every morning I wake up, I get out of bed, I get in my wheelchair, and I wheel myself into the bathroom, and I put my prosthetic leg on, and then I look in the mirror and I see the scars that I see every single morning, and I think about what caused those scars every single morning. But in that statement that I just said, what was the most important thing I said? Every morning I wake up. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have a prosthetic leg. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have scars that I have to deal with. Nothing to do with any of that. Those are called distractions. We deal with distractions in our life every single day. And unfortunately, that's what we concentrate on. We don't concentrate on the important things. The important things that I get to wake up, just like you do, every single day, and make choices for myself, just like you do. I get to go to bed every single night and think about those choices that I made for that day, just like you do. Do I make mistakes? Absolutely. Do I lay in bed and I'm like, man, I shouldn't have made that decision? But I can make that, I won't make that same decision tomorrow. Every morning I wake up, I'm lucky to have what I have. And I understand that. I'm lucky to be able to stand in front of you today and to share my story. I understand that. And in the end, after all of this, I can honestly, 100% tell you that I'm happier than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm happier than I was yesterday. I'm happier than I was the day before. And I'll be happier tomorrow. I'm happier than I've ever been in my entire life. Happiness is absolutely a choice. It's your choice. Choose to make other people around you happy. I think you'll see that you're happier yourselves. Give hope to people that need it. You have hope to change and save lives. You have the most amazing power in the world. Choose to use it. I want to say thank you for having me, and I don't know if we have time for questions. Maybe, maybe not. I will do a few questions. I mean, we have to have questions. If there's no questions, I'd be really sad. And I might cry. I'm just kidding. I can't cry in front of you. No, I really can't. My tear ducts are all messed up. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I could cry if I needed to. There's a chance. Yes.
Why didn't the Hayman system, fire suppression system, kick in?
So he asked why the fire suppression system didn't work on my vehicle, and in the end, they just don't work. There's no way to test a fire suppression system unless you set it off. So you don't know if it actually works. Yeah, you can test the gauges and stuff, but in the end, you just don't know. The circumstances have to be perfect. You have to shut every hatch for the suppression system to work. When you're on fire, you're not thinking about shutting a hatch. You're thinking about getting out and getting the fire off. Any other questions? Because really, honestly, how many times has a fat man with one leg burned, no ears, no nose, stood in front of you, and you're like, I don't have any questions for that guy. Yeah. Right. My day has been great. I get to speak to you all. We were just over at the middle school. What's that?
I'm sorry, it's such a basic question.
It's a great question. Not a bad question at all. My day's always great. It really is. I control how I feel. Yes? How long did it take? Is that what the question was? How long did it take to get the service dog?
Yeah.
So he was trained for 1.5 years, and then I turned in an application, and I got the service dog within probably about 2 months. It was just happened that they had a class coming up, and Amos was specifically chosen for me because he knew a couple extra tasks where I said the dogs were trained for post-traumatic stress, and I didn't, so he was trained to do a few other things, like tug was one of them, so if I needed him to, he could take my sock off, which I don't need him to do anymore. You know, this was at the beginning when I was having a hard time with a lot of things, but he was trained specifically for me, and he's a great dog, but he's also very worthless once in a while. Amos. Amos. All right, anything else? Yes. What are you looking at? Yep.
What motivates you to get up every morning?
What motivates me to do, honestly, this is a big part of it. Being able to speak to you all, being able to go to classes or to schools. I do this almost every single day, 5 days a week. Monday through Friday, I'm almost always in a school doing this. That's what drives me, the purpose. I think that's what drives anyone, having a purpose. You find your purpose. Right now your purpose is to get good grades. But you feel a lot better at the end of the day when you do well on that test than you do when you get that 50 that I was used to. Find a purpose. It's one of the most important things in life. I saw another hand back over here somewhere.
Can I get an autograph after we're done?
Autograph, yes, it'll be worth nothing. But I will charge you $10 for it. So I will charge you $10 and it'll be worth nothing, so you'll be out $10. No, I'm just kidding. I'll totally sign it. Whatever. If you want me to sign something, I absolutely will. Yes? Yeah, so I did. So part of the training for getting the service dog was I actually went into the prison for 2 weeks with the inmates and the dogs and trained with them. So I got to meet the inmate. Ramon was his name. And Ramon is released now, but he was deported. That was part of his original sentence. But now he's training dogs. And Ramon actually wrote this really long journal. Everybody had to keep a journal. And Ramon was a convicted murderer. And he wrote this journal like he was a 90-year-old grandmother. It was amazing how much they cared for these dogs. It had his first baby tooth in it, his first nail clipping. This is a convicted killer. But you know what? I truly do believe this, and I know some of you will be like, you're crazy. But the people that were in there that I met in that prison, many of them, probably 50 of them, were not bad people. Yes, they did horrible, horrible things. They made bad, bad decisions. But a bad decision doesn't make you a bad person. I truly do believe that. Yes, they made bad decisions in life, but they're not bad people. What bad person could create that, to make that work? Well, sometimes. Like 20% of the time. Yes?
Can you give some advice on
approaching a wounded warrior and just asking them what happened. Honestly, with me, I love it. I don't mind at all. But I'm not afraid to tell my story, obviously. Some guys are afraid to do it, to tell their story. I think if you have a question and you're not afraid to do it, just approach them. I think most of the people will say, no, I'm not comfortable talking about it, which is fine. Or they'll tell you. Honestly, I was on an airplane one time and this guy sat down next to me and he looked at me and he said, looks like you had a bad day. I was like, actually it was bad 6-7 months there. But that was honestly the best way I've ever heard anybody start a conversation with me. Looks like you had a bad day. I thought it was perfect. I'm a little different than others, obviously, but I'm very comfortable with it. It's my life. It's what happened to me. I know it's very visible, so I know people are going to ask me, and I'm totally fine with it. I think we're getting the end all. So, if you guys have any more questions, I see there's a couple more hands, but if you have any more questions, please check out my website. You can email me through my website, and I promise you, 100% guarantee you that I will answer any question you have. Well, almost any question. There's almost nothing out of bounds. So ask away. So email me, and thank you so much for having me today. Have a great rest of the day.
Back on here. Thank you, Rick, for that great message. Very much appropriate for the times we're in, and the encouragement is very much appreciated. Operation Comfort is an organization that provides support to our service members who have been wounded in Afghanistan or Iraq and are receiving treatment at Brooke Army Medical Center and Audie Murphy VA Hospital in San Antonio, Texas. Wounded service members from all over the United States recover in San Antonio, as you heard from Rick. Their goal is for our wounded military, who have given so much for our country and the world, to see that their sacrifices are appreciated and to help them recover as quickly and completely as possible. Wauseon High School, through the Student Council, along with all other schools in the Wauseon Exempted Village School District, will be making a sizable donation to Operation Comfort on behalf of Mr. Yarsh. At this time, our veterans that are in attendance, kind of a tradition here at Wauseon High School, if you'd be willing to introduce yourself and state your branch of military for us.
My name is Ken Brink, Navy, Vietnam, 62 to 66, aboard the USS Housing Pop.
I'm Jeff Roop. I was in the Air Force from 85 till 2000, and I have to embarrass my daughter, Sierra, who's a freshman here.
I'm Lawrence Height. I was in the U.S. Army from 1969 till 1991. I was in Vietnam, Panama for Just Cause, and the first Gulf War. That's where I got this.
I am Jamie Love. I was in the U.S. Army from 1990 through 1994. Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
I'm Al Schechner, and I was in the U.S. Army, and I was in Vietnam. I was in the service from 65 to 67. But what I'm more proud of is my father, not my grandfather, but my father was in World War I, and I still have his dog tags. And a lot of my uncles served in the various branches of the service too. But I thank all of you for coming today. Thank you very much.
My name's Mike Freestone, United States Air Force, 1989 to 2009. A retired lieutenant colonel, and I was in Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Larry Roush, 1985-88, Alpha Company Mechanized 36 Infantry. My daughter Delaney, I got an embarrassed you too. So.
Next door, I joined right after high school, days after high school, so 18 years old, and I retired from the United States Army when I was 47 years old, so do the math, I did 30 years. Mom's combat boots, I'm that girl, that's right. So I'm with Rick. I encourage you all to think about what you're going to do, and if you don't have a plan, then go guard or join the military all the way, go all the way, try it.
My name is Ken Sunderman. I was in the U.S. Army in Vietnam from 68 to 70. I'd like to also say hi to Tristan Brajas and his friends, Sophie, Tori, Kate, Zach, and their friends. And go team, Engines rock.
Thank you again, veterans, for being with us today and taking the time to be here at Wauseon High School. We appreciate your service. At this time, the Wauseon High School Band, you saw enter the auditorium, will be playing the melody for each branch of the service. If you're able, I'd ask that you stand during your melody as they play. Band. Thank you, band. Today's speaker would not be possible without the work and dedication of one individual, and I would like to introduce and thank Sherry Ann Franks for all of her work in putting this together and getting our speakers for us each year. Please welcome Sherry Ann Franks to the podium.
Thank you. In closing, I would just like to say, have you ever heard the quote, dream big or go home? Well, home you can always go to. So this is what I do. You dream big, you work hard, and amazing things can and will happen. Look at Rick. He came here today. It took me 2 years, and I'm telling you right now, I believe so much in all of you that if it took me 10, I'd still be trying. So it does pay off. Yesterday we hit the road, oh, so early. Rick's not a morning person, I am, so it was kind of difficult, and I had to snap the whip. But thanks to Rick and his generosity, I want you to know that over 3,200 people have heard his message, and most of them were students. We have truly been blessed by his story. Again, I would like to remind you that he has his own website, and he does Sweetheart and Heroes. I know you kind of snicker at sweethearts, but look what amazing things kindness and hope can do. Please check out his anti-bullying website. I want to say that I do a lot of the legwork, but also I want to give special recognition to the sponsors that helped me to be able to bring Rick to you today. Ron Hodges Investments, Wasion Masonic Lodge, Wasion Rotary, Wasion Machine, and their We Care program. Today, if you already have not received them, you will. Thank you, Tomahawk Printing, for donating well over 1,000 or almost 2,000 bookmarks that each one of you can have today. As you look at this, I want you to look not only at the before and after picture, because Rick said you can find hope in anything that you do. Hope and possibilities. If he had not gone through this, we wouldn't have such a dynamic speaker that we have here today. And the blessing that I get is that I get to have him all day and we get to talk. You think he'd be tired, but we talk all day long when we're in the car, when we're at the restaurant, and I hear so many amazing things. One of them was not amazing, but it's war. And this one little gentleman that you'll see on here is probably no longer with us because he befriended the American troops. So what positive thing can you possibly take out of this? You can take home today that we are going to always remember this young man and the hope that Rick gives to each and every one of you. We need to stand united. We've been through a political battle, none like any other. Maybe they should have listened to Rick Anti-Bullying's, because they were both that way. But we need to stand united, and we need to put our hatred behind us. Get rid of that baggage. We don't need it. And like this Christmas song, I drove bus for 25 years for handicapped children, and I'm going to take a new journey in my life next week, and I leave that behind. But I want to tell you about an autistic child who wanted clouds every day of the week. Oh. And let me tell you, come November, they better be there. In October, he was frantic. So we listened to Christmas music because that brought the clouds from Pennsylvania and Indiana. Whatever works. But the Christmas music put me in a place, and Rick just kept me comfortable in that peace and hope. And like the words in the song says, let there be peace on earth. And my challenge for you today is let it begin with you. Thank you for everything.
Once again, thank you, veterans, and Rick for being with us today. A great message again, and we will take that with us and take it to heart here at Wasion High School. Students, we have a few minutes left. We will be dismissing to fourth period. Have a great day.